Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. This is Laurie Smith. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another Restoration, and I'm glad to be here. 6:30 here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta. Wednesday morning, September the 14th, and I'm just waking up having a coffee. Just trying to wake up here. So having a little bit rougher time this morning than usual. And I'm glad to be here, and hopefully, you're getting something out of these shows. I know that I am. Just morning reflection, really looking at, what can I do to help myself along my healing journey. And it just sort of holds me accountable to keep going forward in my healing journey instead of just putting it off. So hopefully it's helpful for you if you're a survivor of abuse, and not all the information we all really might not relate to all of it, and some of it I do, some of it I don't, and we've all been through different things, but I was just hoping to really share information that I thought was helpful, and just some positive sort of reinforcement for people out there who are struggling and suffering along. Who may not have anyone to talk to, may not have anybody to even validate the abuse, It's really a sad situation for so many people out there, I know that. And so, that's why I'm doing this show. And so thanks for tuning into my shows. I appreciate it. I do a lot of them, and I've done over 1,000, over the years, more than that even, closer to 1,500 or something over the years, but I just thought I'd continue on with this one for a while and just kind of continue on in my healing journey. So thanks everybody, and I hope you're having a good morning so far. We'll get right into this. If you're a survivor of abuse, you want to do a safety checklist and make sure that you're safe enough to be listening, to anything like this, just to make sure that you're not going to be triggered and then have a really bad day or, self-injure or hurt yourself or somebody else, right? You got to know how to judge that for yourself, otherwise don't listen to this show. You have to be careful what you're doing as a survivor of abuse so that you're not triggered, and then, things can trigger us, right? So you want to make sure you get that information. If you're not sure how to do a safety checklist to make sure you're safe enough, get that information. You can find it in several places on the internet. But I found a really cool chapter, 60 pages long, in the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse ASCA Amore Center program, in their Survivor to Thriver workbook, which is a free, it's a manual. It's free. You can grab it on their website. Just type in your browser ASCA Survivor to Thriver manual, or type in your browser Survivor to Thriver workbook or anything like that. It'll probably come up because it's, a lot of people know about it and use it, and it's really helpful. I've actually through the whole manual years ago, but first, how to make sure that you're safe enough. When you begin your healing journey, safe enough to actually do the work, right? And so make sure that you are. And if you're not sure, get help. Because you do not want to be struggling and, going backwards in your healing journey. That's not at all good for anybody, right? So make sure that you're safe enough to be listening. Otherwise, just turn the show off. And we'll get into this morning. We're looking at just continuing on with this really interesting acronym from Havoca.org. It's Cheryl. She's written out a bunch of stuff, to do with the letters Adult Survivors of Sexual Abuse, Adult Survivors of Sexual Abuse. But she said, in the information there, that anybody can benefit from this information, not just people who are survivors of CSA or any type of sexual abuse. So any type of abuse, anybody could probably sort of get something out of these. I think they're really cool. Yesterday's was the you in Survivor. Use your inner strength and realize how strong you really are. You've overcome insurmountable odds and survived. Feel proud of yourself and know you've done the best in your circumstances. And this morning's is R in the Survivor. R is remember you can close your eyes for the things you don't want to see, but you can't close your heart to the things you don't want to feel. So that's what she's written there. And I mean, I guess that's relatively true. I mean, we can close our eyes to things that we don't want to see, but our heart, we can't really close that off. When we do, we end up, with difficulties. I know that's what I did for many years. And, do I continue to do it? Probably in some areas of my life, in some ways, right? Due to the abuse. Because if I close off and I don't feel anything, then I don't have to feel any pain. And I mean, I masked the pain several different ways in my lifetime. Alcohol was not one of them. But drug abuse was. And I used to use a lot of drugs. And when I was young, up until the age of 21, 22, right in there somewhere, when I decided to get off the drugs and to face life from a sober standpoint, from a straight standpoint. And I'm glad that I did that. That was one of the best things I've ever done for myself, because I never went back to them, which is great. And but the issue is we can find other things then to close our heart off so that we don't feel right. And then I did that for years, and then all of a sudden something would trigger me at before I hit the age of 41 and started my healing journey. It would be a calendar date rolling around on the calendar, some horrible anniversary of something that happened in our family that was just devastating, or something like a memory flashback sort of thing would come back. And because I had never dealt with the abuse and had always pushed it down inside my heart, inside my spirit and soul, inside my very being, just shoved everything way down there so I wouldn't have to feel it, wouldn't have to deal with it. That caused a lot of problems. And I think, that was the issue, is that I did close my heart off to things I didn't want to feel. I didn't want to feel the pain. I didn't want to feel the despair, from just watching so much suffering in my home, including my own. And I didn't want to feel that, Nobody does, right? And but until I reached out at the age of 41, 42, I was not going to be able to heal, because I needed to face these things and allow myself to feel what I needed to feel, and that it was okay to do that. I'm glad that I was able to do that. I did reach out and get some help. I wasn't really completely on my own doing the work. I did the work mostly on my own without a therapist or counselor. But I had some really good friends in my life who were there for me, who were survivors of abuse. They knew basically where I had been. I reached out to anonymous help first, and then I started reaching out to other people, and it was really helpful for me to do that, And so I've been able to work through a lot of the problems that that were the main issues in my life that were causing me so much distress and so much despair, and really just causing me to not be able to function in certain times, not be able to deal with things properly. So I'm glad that I did that. And we have to be careful when we're doing that sort of thing. So you want to make sure you get help if you're not sure if you can do it on your own, because you have to be 100% sure that you're not going to hurt somebody or hurt yourself when you're doing this work, and any kind of work like that. So be careful when you're doing stuff like that, and just make sure that you're safe enough to do it. I knew that once I had made the decision to not self-injure, not end my life, and to live, and really live for sure. And I made that promise to myself, that I was that I was going to get help, right? Once I made that decision, I knew that I was safe enough to do this work. But until, prior to that decision being made, where it was a really, a promise to myself, really, that I was going to do this, until I made that decision, I may have not been safe enough to do the work by myself. So you got to be really careful when you're when you're doing some of this healing work, and make sure that if you're not sure you're going to be safe enough, then you need to reach out and get some help from somebody, even if it's anonymous, whatever. If you don't trust people like counselors and therapists, or that was my issue. I didn't trust anybody. So whatever it is, there's anonymous help, whatever. Make sure you reach out and get some help. Right, it's very important. So I think that's good. It's good to look at that. And also there's this inner child healing work stuff on Havoca, Help for Adult Victims of Child Abuse. That's where this comes from. HAVOCA, Havoca.org, and they have this tab at the top of their website. If you go there, it's called it's a Survivor tab, and you click on that, and then it takes you to this page, and on the left-hand side, there's all kinds of tabs with all kinds of information. Really, lots and lots of info for people. I really highly suggest going to that website. I found a lot of really helpful information there. There's just tons of information. I didn't realize there was so much information on that site, because I had been on that site for over the years, and never really clicked, I guess, on the proper tab, because I didn't realize all that information was there. And so I just found this stuff. So it's very, very interesting. This is Inner Child Healing Work, Loving the Wounded Child. So that's where we're at. Excuse me. Yesterday we left off, and they were just talking about the choices we made. We have made as adults. Were made in reaction to our childhood wounds and programming. So our lives have been dictated by our wounded inner children. So just as our hearts were broken, our spirits wounded, our minds programmed dysfunctionally, right? And these choices that we made as adults were just in reaction to our programming, our dysfunctional, toxic programming from being abused, And our lives have been dictated by our wounded inner children. I know that was my case. And today I still have to watch that to make sure that my decisions I'm making as an adult, almost a 51-year-old adult, are not based on my 10-year-old inner child who is still wounded, and still making these decisions like, oh, we can't trust that person, we don't trust anybody, or just, panicking, this inner wounded person that I am from so long ago. We got to, I got to make sure that my decisions are not based on that, right? And that, because I'm an adult now, no one's abusing me now, and I have to get in touch with that stuff. So I did a lot of inner child healing work. I really never even really talked about it too much on my shows I used to do here before for One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, a couple of years back. Like, I did a whole section on inner child healing work because I was looking at it with especially John Bradshaw's work, as well as Robert Burney. And those two guys, they've got some really good info out there for people. But I did the main bulk of the work through a program called Your Envisioned Mind. And that's what set up the program for me. It's from a lady, Beverly Searle, out of Australia. And that was really, really helpful. So that program actually sort of made the difference in my healing journey. It really did, because I wrote my book, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, The Journey, which really is the truth about the child sexual abuse that I suffered as a child. And in order for me to be able to write that book, I had to go into my very depth of my pain, and sort of rescue my inner child and, allow myself to see what I went through, which was horrible, because I had stuffed all that down, really so far down that I didn't want to deal with it, And so that inner child healing work was very, very helpful for me. And I just wrote that book because I want the world to know that this is so damaging. It's just so incredibly wrong what we've been made to suffer. And any type of abuse, it's all horrific. And, I want people to know the truth, right? So I did that for a reason, just for my inner child who suffered, from 8 to 9 years old. And I'm like I said, I'm just one voice, There's so many of us out here. That's why I'm doing this show. I'm hoping that eventually, someone will get something out of these, that, so that that you're not alone, and that you're not, there's nothing wrong with you. You know what I mean? It's not us. I'm not a bad person because I was abused as a child, and I'm not an evil, wicked person because I was abused as a child, and I shouldn't be shunned by society or by anybody, because of my behaviors. I just need to get help, so that I can make sure that I'm not toxic to myself and not toxic to other people because I was abused, right? And this is the case for so many of us out here, right? We find it difficult to make friends. We find it difficult to find people that will even want to talk to us. And because we have pain. People don't like to be around pain. They only want to be around people that are happy. They only want to be around people that are having a good time and doing something with their lives and getting someplace. Because people only like successful people. And that's a shame, but you know what? Then you know who your true friends are, right? And I don't have very many true friends. I just have a few. But I'm really thankful to have these few true friends instead of just a bunch of people hanging around me that really don't care about me, or care what I'm going through. So I figured I'd rather be alone than have a bunch of fakey people around that really are not my friends. You know what I mean? And so, but it is hard, and that's why I do these shows, because I know it is incredibly difficult to be in this situation. Because we're ostracized many times from our family, any family that's left after the abuse, whatever family setting that would be, whether it's foster family or adopted family or our real family, right? What is that family? It was just toxic destruction is what that was. And where's the support in that? So many times survivors of abuse, we just have no support. And there isn't really a whole lot of support out there besides a therapist or counselor, and even then it's iffy if you're going to get some real support there. So where do you find support? I had to learn that this was all going to have to come from me. I was going to have to do the work. As nobody's going to be able to help me out, because even if they wanted to, they couldn't really do that, And I started to get into this inner child healing work, and it really, really helped me out a lot. And I started to see, what I needed to really work on in order to be able to heal and move forward and get where I am today, which I'm really thankful to be on this side of it, let me tell you. So it's hard. So this morning's section, pick it up from that. So our lives have been dictated by our wounded inner children. They said here, history, politics, success, or lack of success in our dysfunctional society, civilizations, can always be made clearer by looking at the childhoods of the individuals involved. So history has been and is being made by immature, scared, angry, hurt individuals who were or are reacting to their childhood wounds and programming, reacting to the little child inside who feels unworthy and unlovable. So look at the world's dictators around here that are causing so much pain and so much distress and so much grief. All these people were little children at one time, and more than likely they are screwed up. The world's not going to admit that and say, yeah, I think they should run some psych tests on those people, but they really should, because they are probably really screwed up. Anybody that could hurt people like that and be okay with it and go to bed at the end of the night and say, oh, well, it's all right, I just wiped out 60,000 people, no big deal. I don't know how you could live with yourself doing that, and I don't know how anybody could even stand to be around themselves. Hurting that many people, even hurting one person is wrong, let alone hurting that many people, 200,000, 400,000. This is absolutely incredibly wrong, but these people are sick. They will never probably admit it because they're, running countries and running big corporations, and they're not going to admit that they're just reacting because they're screwed up, and everything that they're doing is based on some sort of toxic garbage, So they're actually very right about what they're saying here. They said it's very important to realize that we are not an integrated whole being to ourselves. Right? Our self-concept is fractured into multitude of pieces. So in some instances we feel powerful and strong, in others weak and helpless, they said. That is because different parts of us are reacting to different stimuli. So different buttons are being pushed. So it says the parts of us that feel weak, helpless, needy, excuse me, etc. are not bad or wrong, but what is being left is perfect for the reality that was experienced by the part of ourselves that is reacting. So perfect for then, but it has very little to do with what is happening in the now. So it says it's very important to start having compassion for that wounded part of ourselves. And that's interesting. So it's important to realize that we're not the integrated whole being. There's all these different parts. Well, that's kind of what I was everybody explains it a little bit differently, but if you really get into like John Bradshaw's work, he's done real great work explaining all this stuff about these inner children and these different parts of ourselves, these different egos. Forget what you call them now, but I did a lot of reading and looking into it. There's all these different parts, and what I did was I could recognize these different parts of myself, these different me's, and all these little wounded inner children at different ages where the abuse took place, where the actual wounding was done, and these are my inner children, and that's just my inner self at these different ages where the trauma was so horrific that I just got stuck there and frozen in time. And so that's a point where the wounding was done, and in order to cope and to survive that, I had to actually just kind of push that down and keep trying to survive, and then that's what happens, it's just these little parts of ourselves, these wounded parts of ourselves. This is sort of, what I could see as far as my situation goes, we're still there, and I needed to actually get in touch with them. And for me, that's what I did, and I actually went and actually rescued them with this program, Your Envisioned Mind. It was really, really great. And so, like the parts of us that feel weak or helpless or needy, etc., are not bad or wrong. And what's being felt was really just was what was necessary really at the time, right? Because that's the part of us that was reacting for what was going on in our lives, basically. That's what I think she's trying to say here. So it's very important to start having compassion for that wounded part of ourselves, because it's, most of my defense mechanisms where today, when I was a child, I really couldn't defend myself, but, inside my home. But outside my home, I was very much kind of a bully, because I was like, okay, I'm being abused inside my home, so I'm not taking anything off anybody outside my home. And I actually held myself very much like a tomboy kind of as a young girl, and was kind of tough, and I would make sure that no one, especially through junior high and high school, no one was going to be able to get that close to me, because I wasn't going to allow anybody to hurt me, And, I sort of held myself a little bit tough and stuff because I grew up in a rough neighborhood, and I went to a school where, there used to be police riots, and there were, tear gas, and there was riots all the time. And the news reporters were always running around on the campus because there was always stabbings or, these horrible things going on. So it's, I sort of learned, I just sort of made myself sort of appear to be tougher than I really was. So, it's, I'm having to restart my whole, I'm trying to get my computer to not restart right now. Sorry about that. Hold on a sec. Just one sec here. Okay, there we go. My computer was actually going to automatically restart, so I'm like, oh no, I'm right in the middle of my show here. Sorry about that. That's really a drag, but it does. It wants to restart. It's like an automatic thing. What a hassle. Okay, so it's got this new programming or whatever. So anyway, we can take on this sort of whatever it may be in our lives that we've done to in reaction to the abuse, right? Whether it's become the one who's manipulating, like the one who just manipulates people all the time to get our needs met, or the one who just because my mom was like that. A lot of people are like that, manipulation, or the one who is just lashes out. The one who is seems to be an uncaring kind of mean person, right? It just, these things really, it's really not our fault that we use these things for mechanisms to cope from the abuse, but then we have to get help, right? To make sure that we're not carrying this stuff on as an adult, because what worked as a child is not going to work for me now. I'm like so far past the abuse, it's not even funny, and yet it's still running my life. And that's basically what they were saying about in history. We've got these people throughout history. If you looked at their childhoods, you could see what was going on and why they did what they did, just based on their childhoods. There's so many situations in history that just show us that these wounded children within are still running people's lives as adults, and it's not good at all. So if they said we'll continue on this one tomorrow because I don't want to take too much more time on it. But they said it's by owning our wounds that we can start taking the power away from the wounded part of us. When we suppress the feelings, feel ashamed about our reactions, do not own that part of our being, then we give it power. So it is the feelings that we are hiding from that dictate our behavior, that fuel obsession and compulsion. So we'll pick up that part because I do want to talk about that tomorrow morning. So we'll move on through here, and we've got positive reinforcement. What am I doing right in my daily walk here? Looking at positives instead of negatives. Day by day. Just keep going forward, and I can't. There's certain things I want to work on. I just haven't been able to do because I haven't had a whole lot of time. But it's good to be positive and not just looking at the negative all the time. And here's a positive reinforcement, a positive affirmation we could say. I can give to others with no strings attached. So that's good. That's good information, really. I can give to others with no strings attached. I actually try to be that way because I find that a lot of people only like me if I do what they want me to do. People will only have me in their life many times because as long as I cooperate and do what they want me to do. And they're very giving and they're very loving, but the minute that, I don't do what they want me to do or behave a certain way, then they don't want me in their life anymore, or they don't like me anymore. And it's like I try not to be like that with people. It's like it's love and compassion and mercy should not be based on behavior. I don't love somebody just because of what they do for me, right? I don't love somebody just or care about somebody just because what I can get from them or how they make me feel. It's how I feel about them. And we have to keep these lines of I forget what you call that, but there's these lines of in the relationship, these boundaries and these things, they have to be kept straight, right? It's not I'm going to love you as long as you do what I want, but the minute you don't do what I want, then I'm not going to love you anymore. That's not love. And I'm going to care about a person, but if they don't just treat me just a certain way, or they just don't, if they're just doing, if they just, this or that, right, and just just all based on my needs, in the relationship, it's like that doesn't work because that's a one-sided relationship, right? If we're going to have a relationship with people, the only reason that I should be in a relationship with somebody is because I want to be in that relationship and I like that person, or I like this deal, or whatever, it's working for me. Now, if somebody becomes toxic and abusive, then of course you got to shut it down. I do. I don't allow toxic, abusive people to be around me, so I don't expect that somebody's going to take that from me either. But I think it's really important. I can give to others with no strings attached. I should be giving to others with no strings attached. I shouldn't be giving with the thought that I'm going to be getting something back. Because that's not cool. It's like, okay, I'm going to give in this area of my life. I'm going to give to this person. Whether it's compliments or care or whatever. But then if I don't get something back from them, I'm going to cut them off. That's not giving. That's not caring. That's just using. It's just a form of using, to get some of our needs met, which isn't cool because that's codependency. If anybody doesn't know anything about codependency, most of the world is codependent in a toxic way. We all have to be codependent in a positive way, right? With non-toxic way. There is codependence that is necessary in life. We do depend on others, right? But the thing is toxic codependency is a real problem, because most people don't know what it is or even know how to deal with it. If you're not sure, Robert Burney has a great website. It's free. Almost all of his stuff there is free. Like, you don't have to buy his books or anything. Robert Burney, Burney, codependency. He talks about the issue of toxic codependency, and it's amazing the information this guy has. It's really, really interesting. I learned a lot from that guy, as well as John Bradshaw, and on codependency and what it is. So yeah, I'm not going to give to somebody just expecting that they're going to have to dance a certain way for me. They're going to have to do a jig, because otherwise I'm not going to like them. I'm not going to care about them. If I give something to somebody, then they better just behave. They better just do exactly what I want, because otherwise I'm not going to care about them, and I'm not going to. That is a very sick and twisted way to be. We can't. We shouldn't be doing things being motivated in that manner to want to help somebody or want to be somebody in somebody's life based on what they're going to do for us, what we're going to get out of it, right? It's what we can do for them, because otherwise the relationship is toxic, right? It's very important to get this information. Self-care, what am I doing, in all the aspects of life, really, physically, spiritually, emotionally, to care for myself? What can I work on? This is stuff we could ask ourselves daily. That's why I'm doing the show daily. I just don't do it on the weekends, because I got to take a break at some point, because I work 6 days a week and I'm busy. My husband's terminally ill, and I got to have a couple mornings where I can just work on my healing journey myself. You know what I mean? And really go through doing work like that, or just spending time in what I like to do, which is reading God's Word and stuff like that. But otherwise I would do a show 7 days a week, but I do take a couple mornings for myself. But I like to do the shows daily, because it really helps me to see what I need to keep working on, what I need to focus on. And if I think of something, I need to write it down so I don't forget. It's like, oh yeah, I should start doing that, or I should take better care of this, or I need to work on that. Because sometimes we'll be busy, we'll think of something. If we don't write it down, we'll forget. And so I like to do the show in the morning, because it helps me to sort of stay focused on what I need to do. So I was like, oh yeah, I need to make sure I get some exercise today, and I need to work on some inner child healing work, or whatever I'm working on, right? So it's good to do this and make a checklist to see where you're at and where we're at, and sort of log this stuff. Keeping a journal is really helpful. I don't keep a journal like every single day, but I do write in a journal quite often, especially when I don't want to forget something. I'll journal, or if I'm feeling something that I need to work through, I'll journal. And journaling is really helpful for me. It may not work for everybody, but I know it works for me. So we'll have to pick up the rest of this tomorrow morning. I sort of went on and sort of had a little trouble there with my computer for a second. Sorry about that. And it was a little lengthy, but here's an awesome Brainy quote from bradyquote.com. Keep love in your heart. A life without it is like a sunless garden when the flowers are dead. That's from Oscar Wilde. Keep love in your heart. A life without it is like a sunless garden when the flowers are dead. Keep love in your heart. Learn to love yourself. That's what I had to do. And, I had to learn to care about myself, really to love myself, in order to love others and allow others to love me. And so, love is a good thing. It really is, and I'm so thankful to be on this side of it. If you're struggling and having a hard time, I'm telling you, you make sure you reach out. You are so worth it. You have to be worth it to you. I know so many survivors who will not even acknowledge that they're worth it to themselves. Oh, you are. Regardless of how anybody feels about themselves, they are worth it. And so, I'm just here to encourage you to make the phone call. You're struggling, you can't breathe, you don't know what you're going to do. You call a crisis line or you call 911. You get some help. Because do not be destroyed by your past. Do not be destroyed by the abuse. You get some help. You deserve it. I did, and I know you do, and we all do. So you reach out and get some help if you're struggling and having a hard time. I'm telling you, you listen to my voice, remember this. And when you're having a bad day or a bad night somewhere, you just remember that Lori chick up in Calgary. She cares, like she said, I'm worth it, and you are. So you remember that, right? And everybody have a wonderful day, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And take good care of yourselves. Be kind to yourself. Be good to yourself. And we'll talk to you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.